All right, welcome to the P.A.T Life Podcast. I'm Patrick, and today we're going to go more into the science of the body. We are going to talk about muscle soreness. We're going to talk about understanding the importance of breath during exercise and how it has such a huge impact on the results, the potential that you or friends, clients can be reaching just purely based off of understanding breath. One of the big things that I've been told as a trainer through my 9 years is that you're going to get, after working out, you're going to get sore. You're going to, if you push a limit, you're going to get what's called the DOMS effect, which is a delayed onset muscle soreness. And what's happening is they say, you're ripping the fibers the muscle fibers when you're exercising, and you're getting a buildup of lactic acid. You have hydrogen molecules filling up the spaces where the actin and myosin come together to create contractions, which is why sometimes it's hard to go through full ranges. That's why it's important to stay hydrated. But there's a huge component that I think it's overlooked, and I know there's people who clearly talk about it. It gets attention. It's been getting attention, but really understanding the depths of it, I don't know how many people are talking about it. Not saying that they are, and the importance is talking about the fascia. Now, what is fascia? So around each of our muscles is this sausage-like casing called fascia. And on that fascia is a bunch of nerves. That's where these synapses happen. And what's happening is understanding is when you're dealing with nerves, you're dealing with electricity. Understanding that we as individuals, as people, are electric beings. Understanding that everything that happens from a chemical reaction, from a chemical response, is directly a response from something electric. So if I pinch you and you go, ow, and that causes you to have an increase in adrenaline or cortisol, what's happening is it's because of that stimulus. I've created an electric stimulus. I've disrupted the nerves. Well, you can also have it with thoughts. If a thought comes into your mind, it creates that synapse. It's an electric stimulus that comes in and then ultimately creates a chemical response. So what we understand is that if everything's electric, we are electric beings. The byproduct of that electric stimulus becomes a chemical response, being that the fascia is a highway throughout the entire body of these neurological signals that are happening and taking place. Is we have to understand that when we're exercising, specifically, what we're doing is we're ultimately, based off of our breathing, making it harder for ourselves or making it more comfortable. Even under stress, you can make it more comfortable. And now, the reason why breathing does that is because that breath will dictate a lot of times what's happening to that stimulus in whatever muscles you're working. So what do I mean? When I have clients, we'll start with stretching. I have people who stretch, and everyone's stretched and you feel tension when you're stretching. What do a lot of times in yoga or any sort of meditation, what do they tell you to do? They tell you to breathe and just try to relax into the position. When we breathe, we take proper inhales, nice controlled exhales. What do? You're able to get further into the stretch. You're able to not be so tense as you get into it. There is this relaxing component to it. Well, what is happening? You're understanding that muscle with the fascia around it is now, as you breathe into it, you're breathing more into parasympathetic. You're allowing your body not to be, as we talked before, in a sympathetic state where it's tapping into what's called your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands is where adrenaline and cortisol is the two big components there. When you force something and that muscle, that the fascia is starting to feel this complete pulse because we're forcing something, it's sending the signal to the brain going, oh, something's wrong. We need to slow this down. We need to stop. And this is why you'll see when people stretch that they make these grunts and these faces, or they'll see their body trying to bend and move to try to do whatever they're trying to do, stretching, whatever the case is. And they tell you to breathe because that breath tries to get you out of that sympathetic state into a more parasympathetic, literally allowing those nerves to calm down. And when you understand that those nerves are what surround the muscles, you're then allowing the nerves to go, okay, we don't have to have such a tight grip on this area anymore. We can allow the expansion, we can allow that muscle to move through its full range of motion. And the reason why it's holding contraction is because when we tense up and we don't breathe and we grunt, your body's just trying to protect you. It's always going to do what it can to protect you. So it tenses up so you don't hurt yourself. It creates more pressure because it wants you to say, dude, you go any further, we can't hold on to you anymore. You're fighting it, and we can't keep having this back and forth. Something's going to give here. That's why you see people a lot of times, they'll get injuries or they'll get these muscle spasms or these, inflammation of the muscle, really a lot of the nerves when they stretch. They'll go, oh, I think I overstretched. That's a big thing. And a lot of our DOMS effect, I've noticed and observed, is people who overstretch. I'm not saying that stretching is bad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't allow yourself to know how to stretch, more of a static stretch where you're just holding positions, but understanding it's not a competition. You have to look at yourself as an electric being. You have control over those stimuluses. How do we know this? Well, look at people like monks or people in these really harsh environments that are able to control their body temperature, that are able to control, um, you know, their breath, able to do feats of strength and things in ways that is we would call insane or extreme. Wim Hof is a perfect example. He uses his breath. He's putting himself into a parasympathetic state, not allowing his body to overreact in a sympathetic way, calming those muscles, calming the nerves. Then ultimately that relaxes the muscles. Understanding, though, even more so that if you're an electric stimulus that creates a chemical, as a byproduct, a chemical response, you're now able to dictate how much of what chemical responses are emitted. And the reason being is all right, if I'm staying more parasympathetic, not having as much of a adrenaline kick, not as much of a cortisol kick, if it in having allowing that more of an oxytocin or an opioid type of release when you're more parasympathetic. Because when you can do that, you can now push your potential. And what do I see with clients and people in general? They'll do repetitions, and they'll feel themselves struggle, and then they'll give up. And then you'll be like, oh man, dude, you had two more in you. And they'll go, I know, or oh, I could have done more. Well, what happened? I always ask, what happened? I started panicking. I started getting like I started feeling the stress of it. Okay. Well, why didn't you do the other two? Because didn't think I could. I got worried. Well, now why do you think you can? Now looking back, I realized that I had more in me. And it's that right there that we have to pay attention to is that stress, that stimulus that came in, the weight, caused a chemical response. Now that chemical response, say this is really high adrenaline up here in cortisol. If they're doing a move that really is down here, but they're allowing that much of that release because they're not breathing properly or they're not allowing themselves to be present with themselves, you see that the move doesn't match the response. And that's something that we have control over. When we're in a closed environment, meaning I don't have a ball coming at my face that I have to respond to while I'm doing something strenuous, or I don't have to, you know, run and then try to leap over hurdles, and then there's a snake that came in the grass. Like, those are more open environments where there's things that you have to respond to that could happen on a dime. When you're in a closed environment, you do have more of an ability to control your surroundings. You have it's more yeah, it's more you're in control. So with us in a closed environment, we are now more in a place of being able to control, the volume basically of the car stereo. And it's, as much as that is a good thing, I think personally having an open environment is more natural, and it allows you to tap into it, makes you more present naturally. That's my opinion. But not a lot of people can get to that place because naturally we've been programmed, or our entire lives has been cortisol, adrenaline. So sometimes having that closed environment helps people play around with that, learning how to manage how the stimulus comes in. And it's important to really dive into these things, because everybody right now with the world, and I've said this millions of times, people are super stressed. People are pumping out adrenaline and cortisol, just depleting their adrenal glands, and maybe you don't even realize it. What are some of the side effects? Losses of appetite, sleep deprivation, not being able to get just an efficient amount of sleep, dehydration, people having mood swings, depression, just irritated by a lot of, like, everything. These are little things that do have an impact on your adrenal glands. But as I've said before, and I'll say it again, is you have control over the ship. Take ownership. And how we can do that is by breathing, is allowing ourselves to take in oxygen, allow that oxygen to help facilitate that slowing of the heartbeat, increasing our HRV, which means we're becoming more parasympathetic, allowing ourselves to basically just unclench. And I see that all the time when I train, is when people get stressed and we create a stress, all the tension's here. It's all in the face, it's all in the neck, it's all in the shoulders. And the biggest thing to understand is that people don't always realize that they're doing it. It's unconscious. It's a subconscious response. And it's important because, as much as, yes, we want to take ownership, it's being able to go, okay, just asking, how am I acting under stress? What are my responses? For the more analytical and science people, all right, this electric stimulus is coming in. Do I feel more calm under the stress, or am I allowing the adrenal to kick in, the cortisol to kick in? Am I panicky? Am I fidgety? So it's important to ask these questions, because when you have more understanding of self, you can then push your limits more in your potential when you're exercising. And I hear it from my clients all the time, is I didn't think I had that in me. I didn't know I can do that. And from my point of view, it's not that I can see the future, but when you're with people enough and you see that they're their biggest setback, you can go, well, I know you could do it. That's why we took the attempt, and you stepped up. You made the sacrifice. You've taken everything that we've been working on, and you've brought yourself to a place where you're going to now dictate the outcomes more, and not let the move dictate it. And how do we do that? How do I do that specifically? And take this with you. This is information I want people to know. I don't want to keep things from people. I just want people to have knowledge, so then they can hopefully grow and build from that. So how do I do that with people? I break it down to the 3 tensions. It's intention, attention, and then just tension. So what do I mean? When I have somebody working out and we're doing a lunge, let's just use a lunge. They will go start to do a lunge. I'll say, hey, do 10. I want you to do 10 for me. And I just observe. I watch what they're doing. I see what their face is doing. I see if their head's moving. I see if they're looking at me. I see if they're looking in the mirror. I just watch where their weight is distributed. And I just let them do what they would normally do. And then after they're done, I go, where did you feel it? You'll get people who say, hey, I felt it here. See people who go, I have no idea. People who go, and they have to really think about it. Now, what that tells me is what I can say is, all right, first off, where is their headspace? Where are they? Are they here? Are they in the moment? Are they present? Or are they off somewhere else? Are they just following orders? Are they just following rules? Not rules, but are they just following orders and just, you know, feeling accomplished because they did what I said? And you get a lot of people like that. Just tell me what I need to do. Well, I'll tell you what you need to do, but I need you to be present. I need you to know how to be present. So what we do is I'll go, okay, if you didn't know where you felt it, I want your intention. Your intention is to stay over this foot. You're intending to keep your weight over your front foot. Okay, that's the intention of the move. Got it. Great. So yeah, sounds good. Cool. Are you there? Now they start to think. You'll see their eyes go. Yes. And then I'll say, or something will happen of, where's your attention? It's over the front leg. Okay. Are you in that front foot? Yeah. Okay. Keep your attention over in that foot. Great. Yeah, I feel my foot. Okay. I want you to feel that current, that electricity from your foot up to that right, to that whatever leg they're using, to that glute, that butt cheek. Do you feel that current from the foot to the glute? The eyes will go up or stare off into this blankness because they're putting themselves in the present moment. Their intention is to stay over that leg. Check. Their attention now is that foot, feeling the current. Remember, we're electric beings. That fascia, they're feeling that highway of connectivity from foot to glute. Okay, got it. Great. I'm there. Nice. Now, as you go down into your lunge, don't lose that connection. Stay in it. Can you stay in it? And they'll want to go fast sometimes. Did you feel it? No, I lost it. Okay, go into speed where you can keep that connection. What it does is allows them to calm into what they're doing. It gives them something to focus on, and it also gives them the ability to just be where we are, nowhere else. They're not thinking about their job that's causing stress. They're not thinking about the world around them that's causing stress. They're focusing on just the stress, the physical stress in the present moment. And it's giving them the ability, as we add the breath, to control their stresses, to alleviate some of the unnecessary, the unwarranted adrenal gland, release that they've been doing time and time again. It's allowing them to try to find a little more parasympathetic under these stresses, these stimuluses. And once people can maintain that tension that I just talked about, then we can create, or we can progress or regress how much of our own internal tension, our internal pressure that then we emit. Now, what do I mean by that? If I put my hand on your shoulder and I have it there and I'm just holding it there, if someone's watching us and I'm not pushing and I say, hey, just meet my tension, and I'm just holding it there, someone watching might not be able to tell if I'm pushing really hard or if I'm just resting my hand. The only way they'll start to know if I'm really pushing hard is if I'm putting everything I have into it and I'm creating my own physical changes to try to create a tension, and then you meeting that. Does that make sense? Because that's the importance there is I can see somebody doing a squat, but if they aren't connected to the floor and they're not creating that equal opposite reaction, that physics with the floor, then their feet are just kind of there instead of pushing. And then the ground's going to give you that support. So we can either increase or decrease that amount of tension in that front foot as we maintain that attention from foot to glute, as we intend to stay over that leg. When you can match those three pieces, your intention, attention, as well as the amount of tension you're emitting, you are now in control of that body. And the biggest thing there with all those three components is that breath. That breath is what's keeping a cadence. It's keeping you in the position, allowing oxygen to flow to those areas, allowing that release of the carbon dioxide, allowing that heart rate to slow down as much as it can under stress. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to be completely calm under these stresses. Your heart rate will go up. Your HRV will drop, becoming more sympathetic. But it's a matter of how quickly that shift occurs. Meaning, if I say I'm at like a 60 reading of my HRV, which is really it's good parasympathetic, and I go into a lunge and immediately drop down to about 20, which is really sympathetic. If that quick drop is so dramatic, it's a sign for me as I'm training that this person doesn't know how to, or hasn't necessarily worked with learning how to control that using their breath, finding calmness in the body. Now, if we do it, and after a couple repetitions, as you get really into it, we start to see it dropping down, there's a controlledness to that changing in your HRV. And those are the things we want to see. Those are the things we want to experience, because that's allowing me to say this electric stimulus is now something that this client or you has control over. And it all comes to that breath, is being present, being aware of what I'm doing by matching my intention, attention, and tension. And then just breathing life into that. And I'll say that to my client: breathe life into this position. You're in control. You are in the driver's seat. You own the ship here. Don't give it away to the stress, because time and time again, you look back and go, oh, I could have done two more. What happened? I bailed. I gave away to the stress. But looking back, hindsight, I could have done it. So my goal is to not allow people, or not allow, but help people not get to that place where they're going, if only I did, what if, I could have, I should have, but I did, I conquered, I accomplished. Because now when you can do that and work yourself under those types of stresses, learning how to control and navigate it and come out victorious or successful, that feeling of accomplishment, now that rush of that natural opioid in the bodies, those different natural high feelings that you get when you're relaxed, parasympathetic, you feel what's considered the natural highs. And we have those in our body for a reason. And if we're not tapping into it, or we're relying on an outside substance to get that, we're cutting ourselves short. We have that naturally in us. Let's take advantage of it, especially in these times. Instead of finding ourselves, just going to drinking or drugs or eating our problems, depression. All right, hey, we have all these electric stimuluses coming in, these stresses. I don't know how to handle them. These are the only ways I've known how, or I'm willing to explore. And even though I might know in my heart this is detrimental, it's this sense of despair. Well, how do we overcome? How have people overcome in the past? In indigenous cultures and tribes, people have to go through these ringers. They have to go through these harsh conditions sometimes to step into manhood or to be a member of the tribe, whether it's physical pain, emotional pains, whatever the case is. And people can be like, that's heinous. Why would people do that themselves? Walking on fire, getting beat up, or having to survive in the woods with nothing. Well, because it's under stresses that we find truth, we find logos. And if people can't see, why would anyone do something so strenuous? Think about how many people you see at gyms who work themselves to oblivion and just destroy their body with no repercussion of any kind of reward of, hey, thank you for going through that. Thank you for taking such harsh conditions that I constantly put you in time and time again. Thanks for doing that while also dealing with all the stresses that I'm not willing to necessarily address, or it's too much for me to address. Thank you, body, for eating a lot of these foods that are extremely toxic to me, and then asking you to go do these things without the proper fuel. We don't do enough of that, a lot of us at least. And then we wonder why we're getting injured all the time. We're wondering why we aren't seeing results. We're wondering why our body's always in pain. And we think that's what we have to do. We have to do more, 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 more. And it's not always the case. And it's being able to understand that we need sacrifice. Sacrifice is necessary. Those types of stimuluses that come into our field and come into our physical, mental, emotional, they're necessary to grow. Just like we talk about the hero's journey. You need the hero to hit a point where they look like they're going to either die or they're not going to make it. They're going to fail the mission. And then there's a resurrection. That's what we're dealing with when we train people. It's that point where they're like, I'm not going to be able to make this. This is too much. I'm hitting a point. And being able to be that mentor or that guiding force to go, you just need to breathe into it. You need to find yourself in that. You need to find that within you, that logos, that truth. And the only way you're going to find it is your breath. Is find it in your breath. Find it in the calmness, the stillness of this source. It's not out there, it's here. Find your attention, find your intention, and stay with attention. And when we realize, and I see all my clients, they go, wow, I didn't think I can do that. Wow, I had more than I realized. That's what I'm always aiming for, not just with exercise, but in life now. Is being able, for us as individuals, to see our potential, being that everything that's coming in is an electric stimulus. Everything that we emit out is an electric stimulus. Now, that's the important part. And what we're seeing as the byproduct is that chemical response. And we can control a lot of that. And that's the beauty is when that amount of control is in your hands, if you're willing to take it, you're willing to accept your own power and then let that drive you and learn how to control it, learn to work with it, learn when always listening to it, but when to push forward, when to maybe pull back. You start to see that when those different traumas and emotions come to the surface, you're able to, over time, have more of an observations point of view rather than a reaction to those emotions, and ultimately have a better outcome in life. Being able to be more open-minded to things, being able to not let things bother you so easily, allowing certain workouts not to create stress, not allowing parts in your body that you're always feeling pain to be what drives that move, especially with shoulders. People can't move through their shoulders a lot of times. Yes, it's because of, structural instabilities. But the thing I always say is that if you're not missing a limb and you haven't like completely lost nerve damage where there is no signal, more often than not, your body is just now found itself in a way where it feels the most protected. Even though you might feel tons of pain, you haven't allowed it that time or that space or that breath necessarily to move out of it. Now, if you have a complete trauma where you got hit by a car, those are things that are a lot harder they're different. They are harder to navigate. Not impossible, but they definitely make it more challenging because you do have now this huge trauma that came in. It has now affected the cell level, the salt. And in that salt is where a lot of the memories are held. So when people have injuries, the salt in that place is what holds the injury. So when you move through it or a certain range and you get to a certain point, your brain, that salt, there's that current, that electricity that gets sent to the brain that goes back to that memory. That's why our senses are so powerful. Olfactory, our sight, sound, touch, taste, they could bring you back to memories, and it's the salts. It's the vibrations, the frequencies that are resonating, that are sometimes trapped. And it's on us to be able to know, okay, like if I have you in a lunge and your knee has had some major injuries, we got to get to that place, that depth, where we literally bring that memory, those cell salts to the surface, to your awareness of, oh, this was the depth I got 10, 15, 20 years ago when I created it, when I had this injury. And even though I'm cleared I still have that memory and I can't let that memory go because that memory is protecting that knee still. It thinks it needs to protect that knee. Where we will then go, let's bring it to the surface, let's address it, let's not ignore it, let's not fight it, let's address it with a respect and a love and a guidance using the breath. Meaning I'm going to have you hold the lunge. Hold it right before that place where that memory kicks in or that panic sets in, where everything tenses up because you go back to that place. And let's just breathe. Do you feel controlled? Yes, I feel controlled in this position. Okay, stay there. Find the control. And they might only hold it for a couple seconds, but I have them come out of it and just say, hey, stay calm, stay breathing. Do you feel okay? I feel okay. And it's like that nurturing hand that allows those memories that are holding in the knee to let go, to allow that fascia that's holding on so tight because of the stimulus, the memory connected with that stimulus, to then just go, okay, we can relax a little bit. Structurally, we're okay. And it's kind of like a kid, like the kids who you see in movies, or they're hiding in the closet and someone's like, hey, you can come out, it's okay. And they're waiting, they're not sure. That's kind of sometimes what our traumas do to our body. So you'll see it in the knee, you'll see it in the shoulders. People will go to try to raise their hand and they're like this. And you see them like, and they're holding all this tension. And people will say, oh, well, and I've done this too. And it's not necessarily wrong, but what do you need to do? No, roll out, just roll out. Well, what is that doing sometimes? If the person's holding all this tension, they're holding this trauma, and you're trying to not roll out, and you're not helping facilitate their breathing, they're staying calm under these stresses, you're just creating more tension there because now they're going, shit, now there's more here, there's more here. Oh, something's really wrong. And they'll be like, yeah, no, I'm still tight. Or we want to just try to relax it using the breath, using techniques in like FRC, kin stretches, just breathing without doing anything, just trying to allow ourselves to put our awareness, our resonance in that space to relax it, relax the nerves, relax the fascia by allowing that breath to bring that parasympathetic back up. And I just want to keep going over these things because I want people to hopefully take this and feeling of the ones who go, oh man, these are aches and pains that come with age. This comes with just what happens. It is what it is. I got to just live with it. No, you don't. You don't have to live with it unless you want to. Unless you want to have that pain and you want to use that as something to um, give you attention, like a victim status, as much as people don't want to hear it, it's true. Yeah, well, when you get my age, this is what you're going to get. Oh, man, I can only imagine. Yeah, man, I'm always, I really roughed up my body. This is what you do. It's like, if you're accepting that because you want people to give you some sort of feedback, positive feedback, by all means, that's you. But if you're complaining, you're not making change, what are you really doing? Are you enjoying victim status? Is it an addiction for you? Is it how you've gotten attention? And that's just what you know. Maybe. I don't know. But if you want to see change and you don't want to just live with it, there are things that you can do. There are people you can talk to. There are books, websites, tutorials, exercise programs. These are places you can go. I mean, I'm here. If you need help, reach out through my YouTube channel. I'd be more than happy to help however possible. But it's a matter of just taking baby steps, and it all comes back to the breath. Is that your breath is the most important thing. So if you cover it, if you restrict it more than you already have, that's another thing. I can't, in my job, I can tell people, look, if you want to wear something over your face while you're exercising, that's your choice. I'm not going to knock you for doing it. Just understand what's happening when you do. I will never tell somebody you have to wear a mask. If anything, I want them not to wear a mask, but it's their choice. If they don't feel comfortable, I'm not going to force it. It's on you. Just understand what's happening when we put a mask on. And that's the thing right now is that I see and I have seen in the 9+ years, one of the biggest things that people have a disconnect with is their breath. learning how to breathe under stress. Now, I'm now having people, a lot of my clients, we've practiced and we work on this, so they're a lot more comfortable with or without masks, but it's a matter of I see people who can't breathe, that don't know how to find their breath, don't know how to be with self just without a mask. You add stress. Now they really don't know how to control their breath. They're really putting themselves in compromised positions, consciously or subconsciously. Now you ask somebody to put a mask on. If you want to wear a mask, I'm not here to knock you. Just understand that when you work out and you're under those stresses and you don't know how to get your breath in order, you are creating more of a sympathetic state. And that's not including what you're seeing and hearing all around you, the fears that come to mind, the stresses, the despair, the tension, the feeling of isolation. Those all create to the stresses. And if you don't know how to find yourself breathing through it or finding outlets in ways that are going to help you become more relaxed, more sympathetic, you're just going to keep pushing yourself into more of that place of a sympathetic. What happens when you're more sympathetic? Well, then what happens is you're compromising your immune system. The immune system is going, shit, something is super wrong. So now it's compromised. It's trying to send white blood cells, T cells, all these lymphocytes, all these things are starting to work at full capacity because it thinks it's in survival mode. What happens in the gut? A big thing that's called, and I've talked about this before, is you have what's called GALT. It's called gut associated lymphoid tissue. That's now working at full capacity. So when you say that your thoughts connect with your gut, there's a power in that because there's the lymphoid tissues in your gut lining. And when you are in a super adrenaline cortisol driven place, those lymphoids in your gut have a direct correlation then to that response. Hence why, as I said, people who are super sympathetic or burned out adrenal glands, they have appetite issues, mood swings, even GI problems, because you are literally affecting your lymphoid tissues in your gut. And it's important because if people don't find themselves out, this is where you will see people getting sick. This is where you will see people getting, infections, bacterial infections, including, putting something over their face. This isn't pseudoscience. This isn't hippy dippy stuff. This is science that you can go look up yourself. It's just putting the pieces together. So when people say, hey, leave it to professionals. Well, I'm a professional. My job is to help people. My job is to help people reach their potential or find it in themselves to reach their potential. What are going to be the obstacles for them? What are going to be the obstacles for me? And these are obstacles. And these are obstacles that we can overcome. So your breath is the most important thing. Understand that we are electric beings. All that electric stimulus that comes in or is emitted from our thoughts and our mind then have a chemical response. That chemical response is all dependent on us if we allow ourselves to be in the body, taking ownership, being present, being aware, and then allowing our breath to guide us in that sympathetic, parasympathetic state. There's so much more I can go into this. I hope I didn't confuse the shit out of anyone. But if anyone has any more questions and wants to talk more about this, I'd be more than happy to. This is, as I said, this is what I do, as well as the films and creating movies. So yeah, this is for now. This is the P.A.T Life Podcast, and have a wonderful day.